Hi everyone, this is Lorraine from Creating a Better Future with Lorraine, my YouTube channel, and also from awakentolife.co.uk. And today I'm interviewing Mark Dallimore from The Body Spot. Mark is an intuitive coach, and I'm going to start by asking, can you share a moment in your life that led you to become an intuitive coach?
Yes. Well, great to be here, Lorraine. Thank you for inviting me on. I know we've been in each other's space for a number of years, and it's good that we can finally connect in this way. Great to hear more about how well you're doing now with your own work. But yeah, I suppose a little bit about my journey for anyone who's kind of hearing it for the first time. I spent 20 years in the world of advertising, and that's just as thrilling as it sounds. Not particularly. Advertising a lot of big brands. A relatively successful career, earning well, but generally not particularly pushing myself to evolve in any way. Not particularly fulfilled. And at a point in around 2012, back into 2012, which is actually quite a auspicious date if you know about these things, my life turned upside down after a trip to Peru. And I came back, and I one day looking out my office window in the middle of the city of London, and I just realized how lost I was in my life, totally disconnected from myself, from the planet, from my own purpose. And the contrast between that and what I'd experienced in Peru, which really opened me up in a spiritual sense, created I can only describe it as a split within me. And they call it in Western psychology disassociation. In shamanism, they call it soul loss. But basically, the effects of that was I went from having a relatively stable and balanced mind one day to experiencing a lot of mental health problems the next. And this was my dark night of the soul, lasted for sort of 7-8 years. And I explored everything I could in a way of healing. First of all, the Western routes, counseling, psychiatry, medication, didn't really help me. Then I went down the Eastern route, Buddhism, meditation, and eventually onto shamanism and plant medicine, which we maybe talk about as we go, which did help me heal and integrate my fragmented parts. And then around about 2019, I felt like I'd brought myself to a place of relative wholeness, and that I wanted really to have a positive impact in the world. I realized that the work I was doing in advertising wasn't really doing that. I was just kind of advertising big brands, and I knew if I continued on that route that I'd probably look back one day in a world of regret at my wasted potential. So I really wanted to explore what my purpose was and how I wanted to serve others. And it led me to a couple of coaches that introduced me to a practice called energetic mirroring, a form of energetic healing that you can do online like we are now, no matter where you are in the world. And this really not only helped me to heal in terms of my mental health and well-being, but I began to feel energized and purposeful, and my own purpose seemed to drop in during that period, and I realized that this is the method that I wanted to use to help others on their own path to healing and purpose. So it was a long journey. It was a very difficult journey, not necessarily one I would have chosen, but on the other side of it, as always is the case, you can look back and be grateful because it makes sense on the other side of it. When you're in the middle of it, you just feel very lost and confused and very dark, and a lot of depression, a lot of voices. It was a very difficult time. But obviously, it was necessary for me to shed my old self and for this new version of Mark to be sitting in front of you right now. So that's a kind of a overview of my journey over the last 13 years or so.
Yeah, and we all have these ups and downs, certainly. And when
Yeah.
you look back and things, that's why that happened.
Yeah.
Suffered that abuse in my marriage, decades ago. And that's what led me to become a therapist. So
exactly. And this is, if you speak to light workers, generally there's something very dark in there somewhere. And all it is that period of the dark night of the soul is necessary to, it's like a cleansing, a shedding of the ego, basically. And then it allows the higher self to come through in the space that's created. But yeah, a lot of people if you don't take the invitation to heal and to evolve, the temptation is to just numb the experience. That's where I was initially, medication. A lot of people obviously go down the alcohol or drugs route or whatever it is, so anything to numb yourself to what's happening. If you do that, you stay stuck in the experience and you can't actually benefit from it. But if you take the invitation to heal and evolve, then you can come out of it in a much more powerful place and help a lot of people that are going through similar experiences.
Yeah, and lots of people have, certainly. And
what
practices do you do on a regular basis that help keep you grounded?
Yes, well, this is the method of energetic healing. I call energetic mirroring, that I got taught 5 or 6 years ago, and made such a big difference in my life. I worked a lot with, as I said, shamanism, plant medicines like ayahuasca in Peru and in Europe as well, which were very, very helpful, very, very powerful experiences. What I realized is that you really, there's a certain type of person you can do, but most people don't want to be doing that kind of experience on a regular basis because it's so powerful. It's very disorientating, and essentially you can lose your ground and your grip on this reality, which is not really what you want. You want the medicines to kind of help you in this human experience, not to let you escape the human experience. That's not what it's about. It's about grounding you and helping you have having a really beneficial human experience. And I realized that although the medicines were helping me, that it's not something you want to be doing on a regular basis. So I needed something in between that work to ground me and continue the healing work, because healing is not a one and done thing. As we know, it's something that is going to continue. There's no end to it. And continue through this lifetime into the next lifetime and beyond. There's no end to it. And traumas build up on a daily basis. I'm sure anyone listening to this can understand that. You have a difficult meeting with a client in work. You have a fallout in your relationship. Whatever, you get a bill through in the post. These little things. I'm not just talking about major trauma that we've all, most of us experienced in our life. I'm talking about these minor traumas that build up during our daily lives. And what I found is it's really important to have a way of clearing this energy as it comes to the surface. If you don't, then it just builds up and up and up and eventually just overwhelms us. And most people live in this place of perpetual overwhelm, fight or flight, basically. And it's because they don't have a regular practice to cleanse their energetic system. So the energy is just stuck, basically. And if we live in our heads like most people do, dominated by the intellect, then healing can't take place when we live in our heads. Healing can only happen when we start to bring awareness back into the body and feel through these difficult emotions within our energetic system. So what I found was vital is to have access to a community that I can connect to on a daily basis. And this is something that is integral to all my programs now, because particularly if you're going to step out your comfort zone, explore your potential, build a business, change careers, which is what I help people with now, aligning with their purpose, then you need a way to process all of the self-doubt, limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging patterns that come to the surface whenever we step out of our comfort zone. And building a business myself in recent years, this is something that comes up all the time. And so what I do is, whenever I experience feeling under-resourced or overwhelmed, in fact I do it pretty much every day, however I'm feeling, connect with my community and people all around the world doing this work. Don't have to be physically present, and we just sit for 10 or 15 minutes in what I call presence. Many people will understand this, I'm sure, watching this, but we just close our eyes and we bring awareness from our head-based consciousness and just start feeling into the uncomfortable sensations within the body. So if anyone does that now, they might feel a tightening in the chest, or perhaps it's a pinching in the stomach, but there'll be something in there that is uncomfortable. And simply by bringing awareness and feeling into these uncomfortable sensations, the body has a chance to start processing this energy. And this is what I call energetic hygiene. Similar to, if you think of dental hygiene, if you didn't brush your teeth every day, what would happen? Plaque builds up and eventually you have a very painful trip to the dentist. But this is the same with most people's energetic system. They're not cleaning it out regularly. And of course, what happens? The energy builds up and up and up, and eventually you've got a difficult trip to the doctor or the therapist, whoever it might be you end up. But these this very simple practice that I do with my community, just connected for 10 or 15 minutes a day, supporting the other person is in a grounded, supportive state, because your system will just template theirs, the body relaxes, and healing just takes place by itself. So this has been the most powerful practice that I've found in recent years, and it's vital. It's a vital part of my daily routine now.
Yeah, and it certainly makes a difference when you connect to other people. One of my
Vital.
mentors used to say, you can move a chair on your own, but if you need to move the massive table, you need help to carry it and shift it. So it makes such a
It
big
is.
difference.
It's vital. And I always say healing doesn't happen in isolation. You can't heal yourself on your own. When I'm sure anyone can relate now. If you've been in a feeling overwhelmed or under-resourced, and you've just tried to sit with that yourself, you can be sat in that state for hours and you still feel the same on the other side of it. I find that when I sit with someone else who is not in that situation, and it can provide a grounded, supportive template, even if they're in the US or the Australia and I'm in the UK, and we just sit like we are now on Zoom, doesn't matter about the physical distance, because energy works beyond space and time. So I sit in bring my awareness to my own system. They do the same, and within about 10 or 15 minutes, I feel resourced again. It's amazing how it happens. It's kind of beyond the realm of understanding, really, but I can tell you it works. But you do need somebody there who knows how to hold space with you. That's really important, not just anybody, because the energy, you will just template their energetic system.
Definitely. And for all the curate practitioners out there, that's what we refer to as the quantum entanglement, and it's well known. And how do you
Yes.
begin when you start working with a new client? How do you begin with them?
Yes. Well, my program now, I call it Pathway to Purpose, and it's a journey through what I call inner purpose to outer purpose. Inner purpose, purpose is such a massive subject, as I've discovered in recent years. Most people think of it, when they think about their purpose, they think about, it's the work that I'm doing, the business that I'm growing, the people that I'm helping, whatever it might be. But purpose, if you've been on the spiritual path, you'll know that purpose goes much, much deeper than that. And the way I describe it to people is, there's a difference between inner and outer purpose. Inner purpose, we all have a shared inner purpose, really, which is self-realization. Different words for it, but essentially that's what it is. It's realizing who we are beyond our conditioned mind, beyond the fleeting thoughts, feelings, and emotions that come up on it, and just cultivating that witness of our experience, that awareness. And that's something that we all share. Ultimately, that's why we're here in human form, and we keep reincarnating, is to realize that this is who we really are, and life will give us different experiences to point us in that direction. But so this is the work that I do with people when I first start working with them. And the reason it's so important is because unless we have that grounding in the inner work, awareness, healing, and also intuition is a big part of that, then if we go straight to outer purpose and the way we want to help in the world, then all of our trauma comes to the surface, all the limiting beliefs, all the shadow, effectively. And if we don't have a way of clearing that energy, we'll get stopped in our tracks. And what most people do is they go back to their comfort zone. They're unhappy in their career, for example. They decide, I'm going to build a business because I really want to help people in this way. All the trauma comes to the surface, because that's what happens when we want to change our lives. Basically, the universe says, all right, if you want that life, you've got to clear all this stuff out of the way, basically, this old stuff. But if you don't know how to clear that stuff, then the limiting beliefs come to the surface, it gets really difficult, and they go straight back into the comfort zone, back to the career, and they kind of bounce in and out of their comfort zone, basically. But if you have a grounding in the healing work and in the awareness work, the inner purpose work, then when you go out to serve others, which is your outer purpose, the work of doing as opposed to being, then you have a way of clearing this old stuff as it comes to the surface, and that has the effect of making room for something new to come in. So you've got to clear out the old trauma conditioning energy in order for a new version of you to come in. And that's basically how I help people uncover their own purpose. First of all, let's go into the inner purpose. Let's clear the old stuff out of the way. And then we got some room for a new reality, a new outer purpose. And we can really have a profound positive impact on the world around us.
And are you using a variety of different modalities when you're working with a new client?
Yeah, there's there's 6 modules really that I take people through. And the first couple of modules are generally what we've talked about so far. The first module, what I call um, feeling, which is bringing awareness from the conditioned mind, where most of us spend our lives, and back into the body. As I said before, it's healing can't take place in a head-based consciousness, which means that we're always going to be trapped like a hamster on a wheel if we live in our heads, in that intellect, in the thoughts that go round and round and round. Until we can bring awareness back into the body, we're going to be trapped by those thoughts, basically. So that ability to witness our thoughts and not believe them all is crucial. I call that the first stage in awakening. Then I take people into healing, and this is what we talked about, basically opening up to support, sitting with our internal felt experience and feeling through it together. Then I take people into intuition. So instead of using our intellect, our mind, to make decisions, which is basically going to always take us in the direction of survival. That's its main prerogative. And if we follow that our whole lives, then we end up with very safe but not particularly inspiring lives, which is where I was, up until about 13 years ago. So it's vital to start checking in with the felt sense when making decisions, and moving in a direction that feels right to us, that lights us up inside, because that's how the higher self communicates. And if we make decisions based on how we feel rather than how we think, we create a life that is in a direction aligning with the higher self, which is more interested in our fulfillment, in our evolution, rather than just staying small, staying safe. And then I take people on a journey for outer purpose, which means going through their story, pulling out all the gems of the gifts they've gleaned in their journey, and then how they can use those to help others. And then going through their values, uncovering their passions, looking at the people who were here to serve and their issues and how we can help them. And then on to more of a visualization exercise. How do we want our lives to look in 5 years' time? What's our ideal day? That's really good to get clear on, because basic manifestation, we generate those feelings around our ideal day. The way you feel is your point of attraction. So reality will generally change to match the feelings that you're generating. So, and then getting clear on the impact we want to have on the world as well. So there's quite a lot involved in the 6 modules, but it's a journey from the inner work, awareness and healing, right the way through to the outer impact we want to have on the world.
Yeah, and you really start to go with the flow. I mean, I did one of your courses, it must be a couple of years ago now, and I've really started to shift along with learning curating.
Yes.
Things. And when you start taking those steps, it flows more easily, and you become open to opportunities, and it just starts to fall into place. And when you're helping these clients, how do you help them shift that trauma that's they're holding on to?
Yeah, as I said, it's inevitable, and it's not just about what I call capital T trauma, which is what I talked about, what I experienced in 2012, massive trauma that split me in two, basically. Capital T trauma, what sounds like what you experienced in the past as well, perhaps an abusive relationship. It could be childhood abuse. It could be an accident. It could be people experiencing in wars, these big traumas. And we all know there's no doubt what a big trauma is. But we all have small traumas that build up and up and up in our lives. As I said, they're the ones that kind of silently run our lives, that we're not so aware of. And they show up as these kind of limiting beliefs, self-sabotaging patterns. So it's crucial to realize. Sometimes when I talk about healing, some people will say, well, I haven't experienced any big trauma in my life. I don't need to heal. But it's crucial to know that we all have trauma. And if we want to explore our full potential, then it's crucial that we implement a regular healing practice into our lives. And when it comes to healing, I've experienced a lot of different healing modalities, as you have as well, Lorraine. But for me, I managed to condense it down into 3 key aspects, which we kind of touched on already. They're essential to any healing practice, and they can take different forms, but I always find that it has to include 3 aspects. Personally, I like to keep healing as simple as possible. The first is bringing mind and body to rest. we can't heal if the mind is busy. If it's constantly going out to the past and the future. So healing doesn't happen when you're watching TV, watching Netflix in the evening. That's not healing. It might be resting the body, but it's not healing. Healing happens when we bring the body to rest and also bring mind to rest. Now, mind only comes to rest when it feels safe, connected, and supported. That's the thing that a lot of people miss. They sit in meditation and the mind is going all over the place. There's no stillness, and I can't do this. I give up, basically. But there's a big difference we talked about this earlier, but when you've got somebody with you who can provide a safe, supported container for healing to take place. And when the system feels safe, it relaxes and energy just starts to process out of the body. Healing happens now. We don't have to do healing. It just happens naturally when we bring mind and body to rest. I've already talked about trusted support. There's a second aspect. The third aspect is this dedicated daily routine. So yes, you can do some amazing healing in a plant medicine retreat or a shamanic healing session. But you need a way to process this energy on a regular basis, because it's just going to build up again. There's no end to the healing journey. So it's important to have something that you can, implement into your daily routine that fits around perhaps the bigger healing experiences that you're partaking in as well. So I would say those are the three key aspects that I would encourage people if they're interested in healing their own particular trauma.
Yeah, great. I definitely agree with that. You need to don't skip, don't force yourself if you're not in the mood. Maybe just move it to a different time, but be consistent, I think, definitely.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's the way I talk to people now, it's like there are going to be times where you don't want to show up, but those actually are the times where the most work can be done, in my experience. Like I've kind of trained myself now, even if I don't want to do it, I'll do what I call a mini in the evening. If I'm feeling great, I'll do a mini. If I'm feeling neutral, I do a mini. If I'm feeling terrible, I do a mini. But it's actually the times where I'm feeling really under-resourced and overwhelmed that I don't want to do it. I don't want to show up and sit in front of somebody and feed into this stuff. I'd much rather distract myself with social media or TV or anything, go for a walk, anything, not to be with this stuff. But that's actually the time, if you're witnessed by another human being in that place when you really are crumbling, that's the time when it's most beneficial. But it's difficult to reach out for support when you're at your most vulnerable. But as I say, that's where the real power. If you can do that, if you can really show up and be witnessed in that space.
Yeah, and it's also good for the therapist as well.
Everyone benefits. Yeah.
They're serving you from a higher self point of view as well. So
yeah, exactly. I benefit just as much as my clients do in that space, and we just trust that we get what we need from that field that we create together.
So what are some of the biggest blocks that people need to overcome?
Wow. Yeah, there's infinite amount of blocks. I think it's important to realize that when we talk about blocks, a lot of people would think about the mental manifestation of a block, which often comes up as a thought. I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or whatever it might be. I'll never be wealthy, or I'll never heal myself, or whatever it is. These kind of thoughts go round and round and round, and we can kind of identify with those. I'm sure we all have those kind of thoughts. But what's really important to realize is that's not the core or the foundation of the block. And what a lot of people do when they go into coaching is they go down the mindset route. And mindset is basically using the mind to heal the mind, which doesn't really work. It's like trying to think positively. A negative thought comes up, reframe it with a positive thought, or just try and think about it differently. But it doesn't actually address the root cause of the problem, which is a trauma within the body, the energetic system which runs down the middle of the body. You know this, Lorraine. And that is the foundation of all our blocks, really. But it's important to know that you cannot release a block within the energetic system using the mind, and a lot of people go down the mindset route, taught all these these techniques basically to kind of get round negative beliefs or push them away or reframe them, but the energy actually doesn't go anywhere. The energy is still in your body. You just pushed it away for a moment or managed to bypass it for a moment, but the energy builds up and up and up. And eventually I realize, and most people realize, that mindset is quite limited. The way to clear blocks ultimately is through healing, is to bring awareness to that uncomfortable sensation in the body. And as I said, it's important to realize that if you decide that you want to change your life for the better, whatever way that is for you, build a business, change your career, or build a healing center, whatever it is you want to do, the universe doesn't just go, well, here you go, here's a 6-figure business, or here's a wildly successful healing center, whatever it is. What actually happens is the universe goes, right, you want that, you're going to have to clear all this low vibration stuff out the way to get that high vibration reality. And as I said, then the invitation is to go in and heal this stuff. But most people don't know that. And as I said, they're in their comfort, spend their life in their comfort zone. And every time they try and get out of the comfort zone to something better, they hit the limiting belief. This is too difficult. They come back to the comfort zone. All right, maybe it was just a business model. I'll try this one. Jump out of the comfort zone, hit all the trauma, fall back into the comfort zone. And so they're kind of pinging in and out of the comfort zone the whole time. But yeah, the important thing is to realize is that if you're experiencing blocks, limited beliefs, whatever that is for you, that's a good thing. It means that you are stretching the limits of your potential. You're hitting the boundaries of your comfort zone. And that's what we want to be doing. The important thing to realize is then what to do when that comes up, not to shrink and hide from it and go back to your old reality, is to actually face it, feel it, to be able to move beyond it. So blocks mean that you're growing. They're a good thing. We just need to learn how to process that energy on a continual basis as it comes to the surface.
That's great. I'm sure there's loads of listeners out there thinking, oh, I'm glad these blocks are a good thing.
Exactly. That's it. It's quite easy to spend life in the comfort zone. Most people do, just kind of going through life on autopilot, never pushing themselves. But the one stat I always bring up for people is, I don't know if you know this, Lorraine, but the most common regret that people have at the end of their lives. You ever come across this one?
I've heard lots of different ones, but it's never, I wish I'd worked longer in a boring job.
Well, yeah, there's a book by Bronnie Ware, who's a palliative health nurse in Australia, and she worked for many years with people at the end of their lives. And you can check out the book, but the most common regret, there's loads in there. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I kept in touch with my friends. There's a few others, but the most common one was, I wish I'd lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And when I heard that for the first time, that kind of lit a fire under me, because I knew I was heading down that path in my career. And so I made a pledge to myself that I would not end up with that regret. I don't care how hard it is, what I have to push through, what I have to do. I am going to, when I look back on, I'll be able to say, you know what, whatever happened, I lived a life true to myself. I followed my passions. I explored my true potential. And unfortunately, if we don't do that, if we do live a life in the comfort zone, then that's why most people end up with that regret, because they just play it safe. I know they live the life that their parents want of them, or their spouse wants of them, or society wants for them, and that's why most people end up in these quite safe but unfulfilling lives, just because we're encouraged by society to just, find a job, take the money, retire, and, put up with it, put up with the lack of fulfillment, because it's unfortunately that's a byproduct of our society. But I think there's been a shift. I feel there's been a shift, and a lot of people now are looking for more out of their work in particular. And, people are waking up, no doubt about it.
Definitely. Particularly over 10 years, there's been a massive shift.
And since 2012, basically.
Definitely since then. And do you think more people are becoming more intuitive, and does everyone have intuition?
I think there's no doubt there's been a shift, generally from, yes, the intellect to the intuitive, from the masculine to the feminine energy, you could say. No doubt about that. You notice well, we've seen spiritual practice come out of the East, like yoga and meditation. We've seen the plant medicines come out of the rainforests into popular culture. So there's been a big shift. And like I say, it's generally a shift from the masculine, the doing energy, the competing, accumulating that kind of energy, to this more kind of soft energy, the caring, the healing. These kind of energies are definitely coming through more, which is good because we were way out of balance before. And I do think more and more people are becoming more and more intuitive, no doubt about it. And I think we all have more intuitive gifts, and they'll be different for everybody. When I work with people, some people pick it up quite quickly, purely by bringing awareness back into the body, and you start to connect with your feelings. A lot of people, they've lived in their heads their whole lives, and they don't feel anything in the body. There's just no feeling at all, and it can take a while for them to start to feel anything back in the body, and so they're completely locked off from their intuition because they're being so reliant and dominated by their thinking minds. So I'd say it takes some people a lot longer than others, just depending on your own unique system and your own unique gifts. But I think everybody's got that potential. I've seen people who were very much dominated by the intellect, and slowly over a period of months begin to reconnect again with the felt sense and intuition. And as I said, intuition really for me is the voice of the higher self that communicates through feelings rather than thoughts, in my experience. And that's vital. If we want to live a really fulfilling life, then we need to be feeling through our decisions rather than thinking about them. That's not to say the intellect is bad or the ego is bad. That's another mistake a lot of people make. But it's like having the ego or the intellect in the passenger seat, not the driver's seat. You want awareness and intuition in the driver's seat, and the ego, the intellect, can chirp away in the passenger seat, but it's not got the wheel. If that makes sense.
And there's all these expressions that we've heard of, like a gut reaction and butterflies in the stomach, relating to emotion in the body.
So yes, exactly.
It's just about bringing more awareness to it.
Yeah, like you said, some people, for me, I connect in, if I've got two decisions in life, like for example, I went to a ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica last year, and I always check in with my felt sense now. Like, how does this feel? And my mind is telling me one thing, but my felt sense is telling me not. My mind is telling me this is expensive. Do we really need to do this? It's going to be quite scary. Doing plant medicine in the middle of nowhere, but a lot of people I don't know. Let's not do that, is what my mind's saying. But I checked in with my heart, center of the chest, and it lit up. And for me, that's the higher self saying, this is going to be the best path for your evolution. And so it's about trusting that. But the mind is going to fight you all the way. Like if you decide to do a program with a coach, a healer, whatever it might be, and it tests you financially, then the mind will do whatever it can to talk you out of that. It will scare you, use all kinds of intimidation thoughts to stop you from investing in yourself, because it equates money to safety. But it's all, I always say to people, look, if you want to just check in with your own intuition and follow that. If this course if my program really excites you and lights you up, then that's your higher self saying to go in that direction. But if you don't feel that, then don't invest in my program. There may be something else that comes along, and just trust your intuition, because only you and your higher self know the right path for you. Don't let anybody else tell you what you should be doing. You need to kind of connect with your intuition and trust that, because we've got all the answers within, really.
You sound just like me.
That's why we connected, I'm sure.
But if this course is right for you, when I'm doing the training, and
yes,
about the body as well. A few of my friends, they get that spiritual tingles, sensation, and particularly one friend, she said, "Oh, I know that's the truth. I know it's right for me because I'm tingling," and your body knows.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. The signal will be different for everybody. So for me, it's like a feeling in the heart, like it lights me up. And incidentally, this is a quick exercise I do with my clients. If somebody is here now, like, I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. But if I've got no idea what we're talking about, if you bring awareness down to the center of your chest and this sometimes is helps people to understand this, because we're not talking about mind here, we're talking about the intuition. So if you say to yourself, my name is, and what your name is, so Lorraine, you say, my name is Lorraine, my name is Lorraine, my name is Lorraine, and you'll get a feeling in the center of the chest. It usually feels like, because it's a truth, so it will feel like an expansion of the heart chakra, or maybe you feel it in the gut, but it's like a warm feeling generally of wholeness, of connection when you tell a truth. Now, if you were to drop your awareness into the same area and say a lie, my name is Sarah, for example, and say that a couple of times, you'll notice a completely different feeling. It's like a collapse, an emptiness almost is how it feels to me. And that's how you can kind of practice this. So you know, this is what truth feels like to me, and this is what something that isn't true feels like to me. And you can kind of just use that as an exercise just to develop that connection and an idea of what truth feels like in your body. And then when you have an option in life, like to take that job or to start that business or start that relationship, whatever it might be, you know, should I start this relationship? Should I start this relationship? And does it feel like a truth? Does the heart chakra open up, or does it collapse? And then you can use that to define whether what path you should take in life. So sometimes that works as a way to just open up the intuition for people.
Yeah. It's better than what I've sometimes done is tossed a coin.
Well, yeah, you never know. I guess that could work. 50-50.
If you're not quite sure, and then you toss a coin, you think, oh, I wish it had been something else. Then you know.
Yeah. That's what they say. Unless it's a hell yes,
Yeah.
it's a no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm going to ask you now, what is the legacy that you hope to leave through your work?
Yeah. That's quite a tricky question. Like, not something I'd really thought of until today, but my purpose, as I've defined it and I continue to refine it over the years, is to heal and evolve human consciousness. And that might seem like quite a grand thing to aim for, but really, I'm just doing my bit. It doesn't mean that I am responsible for the evolution of humanity into the fifth dimension or whatever. You know, it's like I just do my bit, and if that means I'm helping 50 people in this lifetime explore their potential and their purpose, good enough. You know, it's just that intention to help healing. Because for me, all the problems of the world, you look at the news, you can see the problems basically are people lost in the ego, lost in the sense of separation, and not realizing that firing that missile into that country is basically harming another version of you. You know, it's because it's quite easy to just kind of separate, oh, that person, that country, that person has that religion, that person has that gender, so I can harm them. You know, but it's the fundamental lack of understanding that ultimately we are all the same consciousness expressing itself in different ways. When you truly know that, and not necessarily just understand it in the mind, I'm talking about you know it, you've experienced it, like I have meditation, plant medicine, I'm sure you have, Lorraine, as well, then it's almost impossible to harm another human being, because you know that's just me. You know, it's like I'm just looking out my window now, like leaves on a tree. You know, you're one leaf on on that tree, I'm a leaf on that tree, but we're connected. We can't see the connection, but we are connected by the same life force. You know, so I'm not going to harm anybody, because I know that's ultimately we're all the same. You know, and so there's this fundamental lack of understanding, lack of awareness of that truth, that we're all one, basically. So if I can help as many people as possible in this lifetime, including myself, I'm still healing and evolving myself all the time. That's always my main priority. If I want to be of service to others, I've got to be in a place of resource myself, but just help as many people as possible on that journey to healing and self-realization. And I think it just ripples out. You know, you help one person, they have an impact on another person, and they impact the next person. So it's just about, okay, can I help as many people as possible in this lifetime with my gifts? And I think if as many of us as possible who are called to that work, light workers or whatever you want to call it, and we all do that work, we all step forward and face our shadow and step into our potential for service, then I think, you know, my coach used to say this, which is it doesn't mean not like you have to get 51% of humanity to wake up. what he used to say is that it actually it would only take maybe sort of like 10% of humanity to wake up for everyone to wake up. Like it's just like a slight tipping over. And I don't think we're that far away from this grand awakening. It's happening. It's happening. But it's just about me doing my bit, however small, in that process, really, so that we can go beyond this, constant battle with ourselves, which is then playing out in the world because we're lost in our egos, the separate self.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're right. I think, it doesn't matter how many students I work with or clients, they all go on and help 10 more
Exactly.
people, and
Exactly. Yeah.
it spreads.
It spreads, and that's it. Helping people understand their own purpose, their inner purpose, and then their outer purpose. How do you want to serve? And yeah, exactly. Hopefully, they go and build a business or career, and they go and help another 50 people. And each one of those 50 people helps 50 people. You can see how it kind of adds up quite quickly.
Yeah, just like all the other spiritual teachers that have spread the word, and they've.
Well, there's certain teachers who have helped millions and continue to help millions, like Buddha, for example. Obviously, we can't all do that, but we can all do our little bit along the way.
So, what inspired you to call your company the Buddha Spot?
That's good. That's a good little link there. Segue we did there. Yeah, my site is thebuddhaspot.com for anyone who's interested. It was a name I chose actually when I started out on my coaching journey. And the reason I chose it is because when I was very lost on my own journey, experiencing all kinds of mental health problems, tried the Western routes, as I said, didn't really help me. And I started to explore Buddhism. And that was a thing that really started to wake me up. The teachings of the Buddha, I was doing Vipassana retreats, meditating in monasteries. And his teachings really got me through the darkest period of my life. I would say that the healing potential of Buddhism is a bit limited. It's more about raising awareness. But just by being able to witness and observe my thoughts instead of getting caught up in them, these thoughts about negative thoughts about me and my past and what I'd done and what a terrible person I was, being able to just kind of go take a step back and witness these thoughts instead of getting pulled into them and believing them, really, I don't know if it saved my life, but it saved my sanity at that time. So it was out of mark of respect to the Buddha's teachings. And also the Buddha spot is that position of the third eye, the ability to see through this reality into other dimensions, really, of consciousness, as I've experienced on my own journey as well. So it's kind of that nod to the Buddha and the deeper dimensions of consciousness that we can all access.
Excellent. I mean, I've dabbled in a few different things like Buddhism, and I've done the Vipassana as well.
Yes.
I don't know if you've been up to Scotland. There's a place called the Sammy Ling Centre, Buddhist Centre near Lockerbie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't been there. I used to go to Amaravati, which is just north of London, quite a big Thai Buddhist monastery. There's another one in the New Forest as well, Chichurst. I used to go to and just meditate used to go and live in the monastery for 5 days, wherever it might be, or attend a retreat for 5 days. Very powerful, but I did find that although I was raising my awareness, I wasn't particularly healing. I didn't feel. And that's what then turned me towards shamanism and plant medicine, which is all about healing. But if you combine those two worlds, the meditation and the healing effects of shamanism, those are the practices that I kind of now regularly implement into my life. I still go to work with plant medicine every 3 to 6 months, but the daily work is meditation, presence in my community. So I found those two, if you combine the East and West, if you like, those are the two most powerful practices that I've found.
Excellent. Any final thoughts for the viewers?
Any final thoughts? Just that, this is a tremendous opportunity that we're living through. I always think to myself, we've chosen this time And apparently, if you listen to different channels, a lot of souls are reincarnating on the earth at this time. And it's like a queue of souls. I don't know how all this works. I'm just telling you what I've heard from different channels. There's like a queue of souls queuing up to be birthed here at this time. And the reason for that is because it's one of the most powerful times that there's ever been on this planet. It's a complete shift and awakening in consciousness. The planet is waking up, and we're all waking up because we are cells within this earth of ours. So all I say to people is, don't let this opportunity pass you by. That you don't know what comes in the next life. Who knows if we'll have the same opportunities? But right now, if you're at an age where you're physically able, mentally able, there's so much opportunity to heal, to evolve, to step into your purpose. We've got the internet, we've got social media. If you want to create a business, there's never been an easier time to create something and then go out and serve who you're here to impact. This is the perfect time to step into your purpose and to make a really powerful impact. And just remember that regret I said, the most common regret people have at the end of their lives. And just, that for me, that's what I always remind myself of. If I'm ever in doubt, if I'm doubting my impact and, my journey, remind myself of that and think, oh, I'm not going to end up with that regret. So just take advantage of this opportunity, whether it's with me, whether it's with Lorraine, whether it's anyone else you hear on this podcast. Just feel into it, trust your intuition, and face the shadow basically that comes up as you step into that path of evolution. That's definitely the invitation.
Yeah. Well, it's been great chatting to you, and I'll pop all details in the link below. And thanks very much.
Perfect. Been a pleasure. Thank you, Lorraine. Great to connect today.
I can really say namaste to you as well.
Namaste. I'm always doing that.
Thanks.
Thank you.